And last but not least, because y'all know there is a small sense of bias in this podcast, we have to talk about the busy, busy beginning of free agency for our Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah, okay, so let's start with the small stuff. You bring Bobby back on a 3-year extension, 44.5 million.
40. Oh,
What a steal. What a steal.
what? Oh my god.
Thank
Oh
you
my
to
god.
thank you to Bobby for
125 for Nas.
thank you to
44.
Bobby for wanting to be in Milwaukee. I don't think he would have got Nas money, but I think he would have got, more money elsewhere. There were teams interested, but I think he wants to be in Milwaukee. So love that. Got him for a steal, a team-friendly deal, obviously. Uh Kevin Porter Jr. returns on a 2-year deal, player option in the second year. I really like that move. Makes a lot of sense. I thought it made sense before the big domino fell, but now, thank God we did it. Gary Trent Jr., 2-year deal, player option in the second. Again, we'll get to why those player options are relevant, but love that team-friendly deal. I was very shocked to see the Torian Prince deal. Shocked, but not shocked. I don't know what he got on Darvin Ham. I don't know what they got going on. But the fact that he
He shot
kept
well during the season. He just was ass out during the playoffs.
hey man, listen. I mean,
Play him up in the play.
this is true. End up falling out the lineup, but sign him similar 2-year deal, player option in the second. If I'm not mistaken. Resign Jericho Sims as well. 2-year deal, player option in the second. Very team friendly deal. But I was really hoping we did that as well. I think that's a great backup big option.
I thought that was our starting center.
No, but our starting center does come in the form of Myles Turner. When I tell you that I got this notification, and what's crazy, Gail, is we've always kind of floated the idea that he would be good. We just never really thought there was a possibility. Uh, but we get Myles Turner 4-year deal, 107 million. The number threw me off because obviously we didn't know where the money was coming from. But then we learned that the Bucks had to waive Dame in order to make this work. And I guess let's start there. There are a lot of mixed feelings and emotions about waiving Dame. So, Gail, I know you have a dissertation ready, so let's let Ashley get her response off first before we get into it.
Oh,
I know we can get deep into the weeds of that, but yeah.
I don't
from
have
a,
much
from
to
a
say other than that's effed up. Like, it's so effed up. We see the Mavs, and I know this is a different injury, but we see the Mavs still give Kyrie his extension, but the Bucks couldn't. And then it came out that Giannis is reportedly angry about it. My thing is, if you're going to do that, even with the rift between the organization and Giannis right now, still maybe make that call. I don't know. I feel like if he's your star player, all star players should have some sort of opinion, if not a say so. But I just felt like, wow, Milwaukee. Wow. Well, so, like, if this is your decision, and I know you can't predict the fact that he wouldn't be healthy this season,
Mm.
but if this is your decision, why trade for him in the first place?
you
And
don't know
as
what's gonna happen.
as I know, but as a front office, you kind of have to consider all things, right? So if you're not willing to ride with this player while he rehabs through any injury, it's just like, dang, it feels effed up.
Gail,
Yeah. All right. So
yeah, go ahead.
you're definitely right. We're back to back on that between Drew and Dame. Um, let me start. Okay. So I was gonna start on the Chris Haynes part because at first I was in our group chat like, man, get this out of my face. Why would somebody be upset about getting better and getting a player that would be able to impact winning now and not a year later? If Giannis did say he cares about having the best situation to win now. So after y'all dropped that info about family ties, to Chris Haynes. I got a call from my other former podcast host from back in the day stating, what if this is just, a bit of a ruse? Like, hey, let them know that I'm upset because I don't want them to think that, I'm snaking out here. Cuzzo, if you could do so for me. And that's where, this report that he's unhappy comes out, because you can't be happy that, the guy that you traded your other road dog for, you're just going to do the same thing that we did to him, except drop him for pennies on the dollar for nothing. But I think we have to kind of commend the Bucks front office here. Like, this is a hard thing for an ownership group to do, for a front office to do. They're eating 2 contracts at once, which that's hard to do. You're essentially paying Myles Turner $220 million to be your starting center. Like, that's essentially what they're doing by buying out this Dame contract to pay Myles another 100. Like, that's
connected, but I think we're paying Dame his money, and I think we're paying.
We are. You're still coming out of it, so it's like, what's the point?
Saying. You're doubling down. So it's like, that's where I'm saying, like, we have to, like, that's a hard thing for a lot of owners would not do that. We wouldn't, a couple years back, we didn't want to pay PJ his $8 million contract because it would have made us start to pay an extra like 30 more when we were going into that second apron. So like, for them to do that now because of where we're at, because we gridlocked ourselves in this trade for Dame, we're forced to make this move for Myles Turner in a world where we did lose Brook Lopez. Because if you lose Brook and you don't replace him and you just eat that Dame contract and go into the season without retooling in any way, because we wouldn't have had money. We would have had to pay DeAndre Ayton to be our starting center. And Giannis would have been gone, because he's not going to have DeAndre Ayton be his starting center in Milwaukee after what we've already done to him in the past. But I digress. It's not really even that. But if Giannis was serious about winning now, and if all the threats about him going somewhere else were true, he would not be upset with that move. So I think that's more of granted, like, loyalty and what I see. What is
adding Myles Turner puts y'all over the hump? No, I'm not. I like it. I like turning Brook Lopez into Myles Turner.
In terms of where we're at in the East, in terms of what we look like, it's not. Yeah, we have a shot to come out of the East. Like, if you think about what Brook Lopez did, we're getting a better defensive Brook Lopez that doesn't have to put us in drop coverage, that has another 4 years. Like, our window with Giannis has now opened up a lot more.
Guard play.
Because before our guard play, it's like, we don't need true, honest guard play. Our guard play is Giannis drive and then shooter spot up, where it's like, we have Gary Trent. We have like, that's honestly what we've done in years past. When our guard play was Drew Holiday, his guard play wasn't true guard play either. It was defense.
It wasn't?
He didn't facilitate. He would come up, get a left-handed layup, or whenever we would get a facilitation bucket or a setup, a look, it would be through Chris's hands. Like that. It.
Are you saying like a
come up with a 3-pointer with 14 seconds on the shot clock, or he'd come up and initiate the offense? But it wasn't like he was a true point.
So who's initiating your offense?
It's KPJ at the moment, but where's if we talked about it, if home is where the heart is, I think home is Chris Paul's chip for his wife. I think if he gets that, he retires, and then everyone's happy, even though his wants to go to
Milwaukee.
No, home is where a chip is, but they want to go to LA if he's going to play one more year. But if there's a guard spot open to take, and there's any minutes to play any sort of facilitator role for 14 a game, here's that spot. But because we did drop Ryan Rollins to facilitate this trade, and also traded Pat Connaughton for Micic, who's going to go to Europe, and we're flexing that contract in a buyout. So now we can afford Myles Turner. But, I mean, Gary Trent can bring up the ball and initiate an offense a la Drew Holiday.
Like Drew did. I'm so sorry.
Oh, he can.
Not like Drew Holiday.
I'm saying, like, Drew penetrated more, but in terms of, like, facilitating and, like, running the show. Like, it's not like it was everybody. It's not like Drew was our. And when he did, yeah, there was a lot of possessions where it was like we dribble up, it's a no pass possession, and he's shooting it like that. That is, tell me I'm wrong, Steve.
So
But
you're saying, as constructed, this roster can come out of the East.
I think Kuzma's the last piece that we need to trade. That is the last besmirching on this roster. And if we can trade him for a guard that can run our point, then boom, we have all problems solved because we have enough guards that can fill in that Kuzma spot greatly, 100%, 10 million times over. So that is the last piece for me. If I'm going to be
Cole Anthony
picky, but that's where it's at. That's what I'm saying. There are potentials. Once I heard that that's a guard that might be in the market, there are things that we can do. But even so, in this East, you can't tell me a team with Giannis and spacers and better rim protectors all around like isn't still a recipe for making something happen where Tatum's out, Halliburton's out, every other team. It's the Knicks and it's Cleveland. So it's like I still we're a top 4 team in the East. It's really who's healthy and who's clicking at that point. But yes, a point guard would be great. I'd love that.
I love this. I see both sides. I'm really in the middle. I completely understand your reservations, Ashley, and I completely understand your excitement, Gail, obviously. So, and when it comes to Dame, it is no more effed up than any other thing that has happened because of the business of the NBA.
Yeah.
It's par for the course for what the Bucks have done.
Yeah.
So, and in a way, I look at it like this. All things considered, we traded for Dame in the hopes that, it extended Giannis's window. The only thing is when we traded for Dame, we had no room to actually construct a roster that made sense for Dame and Giannis. So the last 2 years were a hope and a prayer anyway. They were derailed by injuries, obviously. The coaching changes, the whole nine. Like, there was a lot of instability. You don't wish for that. You don't want that, but that's just the reality of what happened, right? I think Dame and Giannis found some chemistry in the second year. And I wouldn't go as far as saying that the partnership didn't work or was completely terrible, but I do not think that duo was going to get us over the hump with the roster that we had. And with both of those contracts, we were never really going to truly have the room to bring in the pieces to probably really build the roster that they would have needed to be successful. On top of that, Dame never really wanted to be in Milwaukee. Was he trying to make the most of the situation and just play hard like he typically does and take pride in that? Absolutely. But I don't think you can get more of a win-win where he still gets his money and then he has the opportunity to rehab and then pick where he wants to go. So if Dame has hard feelings, I understand that. But also, I would imagine this freedom that he's going to have now may also feel equally as good. On the Dame front, that's just a business. Sucks to suck, but it's what the Bucks needed to do given their circumstances. I agree with all the points about Myles Turner. In an ideal world, this is the best. If we were going to pair another big with Giannis, this is the best big to do that with. And it does extend our window. And in general, we do get younger. I think removing Dame also, people forget that now we have a lot of young players in the backcourt. I think the Bucks do want to play faster. Do I think that KPJ is going to be a top 10, hell, even a top 15 starting point guard if this remains to be the case? Maybe not, but will he be serviceable? Absolutely. What's the worst that?
I like Mark Sears too.
You said what?
I like Mark Sears too.
He's on a two-way.
He's a ready to go guard.
He's on a two-way, and I think I'd like to see what he looks like getting minutes in the NBA as a backup. I mean, if he becomes kind of what Brunson was in Dallas, it'll be great. But we don't know that yet, right? So I think all things considered, Bucks are in a really good spot given the circumstances we were faced with. And to the point about Giannis, I could easily see him truly being not pleased about Dame leaving, right? But I think Giannis got to stand on what he said. He wants to win. This is the best shot you have at winning or having a shot at winning, at least this season. And then finally, to the point about the player options, next summer, a lot more teams will have a lot more cap space. And there are a lot of players, stars and role players, that have player options going into next year. So I will not be surprised if we see a lot of players opting out based on how this season goes and either returning if it was a good run or going to get the bag if they played for a better contract. So I think that's really the synopsis of free agency. This particular free agency this summer, there weren't a lot of notable free agents and a lot of teams did not have a cap space to do too much, right? So a lot of teams stayed put. More teams stayed put than teams that kind of went out and made splashes, right? And there's probably only a handful of teams that you look at what they did and you say they got definitively better in free agency alone as it stands right now. A lot of teams made same tier moves, like lateral moves, or just kind of stayed put because they don't have a choice. And because the league has so much parity and is relatively so wide open, we don't know how that will play out until we get to the season. So I think next summer will be a lot more interesting in terms of these signings and where players may actually go. But for the Bucks specifically, don't know if they could have did too much better in this situation. Also want to add the Gary Harris deal. I really like that. I really like that we're fortified at the wing position. If we are able to grab a Cole Anthony or just bring in some type of lead guard that just feels a bit more serviceable as a point than KPJ, because I don't think he's a true point, I'll feel better about that. But I mean, to Miguel's point, Giannis at point is where we saw a lot of success with the Bucks last season. So if that is the formula that they decide to go with, I see us being just as formidable, as we were last year, if not a little bit more, being fully healthy.